Hi everyone, in this video I will be diving deeper into the identified problem, objective, customer value, and implementation of Dingo, our project for the Square CPOS hackathon. Let's start off by looking at the inspiration behind Dingo. So there's a few things we kept in mind when thinking about what we wanted to build for the hackathon. The first was that changing consumer habits have necessitated businesses to have and maintain online presences. If you don't have an online presence, if you don't have an online payment system, then you're missing out on customers. Additionally, more and more businesses are onboarding onto all-in-one payment solutions like Square and its competitors. So you have a lot of small businesses, big businesses, medium-sized businesses, all moving onto payment solutions like Square. And then lastly, existing loyalty programs are fairly generalized and oftentimes not personalized. So to sum it all up, currently, sellers on Square lack the ability to engage buyers with personalized recommendations based on past consumer behavior. That was really our inspiration behind Dingo. Now let's take a look at the objective. We want to provide sellers with a smart, personalized recommendation system that sends buyers discounts for specific recommended items based on their order history. And we wanted to do this while keeping in mind three key considerations. The first being that Dingo would be accessible. We would allow any seller to integrate with Dingo no matter the size of their business, and they could customize the service to fit individual seller needs, and it would be free to use as well. Next, it would be self-contained in that it would be function independently as a service, and plug-in and go functionality would allow for easier onboarding and make it so once onboarded, sellers wouldn't really have to proactively manage Dingo or worry about what Dingo is doing. Dingo is handling everything on its own and functioning on its own. Lastly, we wanted Dingo to be transparent. So we have the seller dashboard track basically every aspect of the end-to-end recommendation process and display these metrics for sellers to see and learn from. Ultimately, we want to allow businesses on Square to seamlessly provide targeted item recommendations with an accessible, self-contained, and transparent service. Next, let's take a look at what exactly Dingo is. As an overview, we see Dingo mainly consisting of two sort of components. The seller dashboard, which consists of the settings page, catalog, recommendation sandbox, and metrics page, as well as the customer recommendations, which consists of alerting and the selection. This is an overview of what the seller dashboard looks like. You can see it has some general information about what Dingo is, how it works, and it allows users to continue to the dashboard, log in to their Square account, and do any of the basics they need to do. The settings page is where sellers can customize Dingo to fit their business and customer needs. They can configure the discount method to choose between loyalty points or percentage discount. They can choose the amount of discount they want to give depending on which one they've selected. And they can also choose the duration of the discount, which is the number of days the discount would be valid for. They can also toggle a couple of other settings, including turning off recommendation catalog warning messages or pausing Dingo temporarily to stop producing recommendations. The recommendation catalog is where sellers can see catalog items and then toggle which ones they want to appear as recommended items to customers. They can also see for each item the number of times it has been recommended by Dingo, as well as the number of times it has been ordered as a result of being recommended. We also have the seller dashboard sandbox, which is a really nice little tool that allows sellers to simulate orders and preview what items would be recommended to customers by Dingo in the case of the order being as selected. For example, in this sort of slide, we see 4 items being simulated as an order. There's no limit to the number of items you can select. And then you see the 3 items that would have been recommended as a result of those 4 items being selected. It's a really cool way for sellers to learn more about the relationships between menu items. They can also see the Dingo algorithm in action and understand what Dingo is actually generating for their customers. Lastly, we have the metrics page, which tracks a few key metrics, including counting metrics like total recommendation link sent and total promotions redeemed, as well as rate metrics like promotion redemption rate and recommendation link click-through rate. We also have a graph that shows promotion redemptions over time on a day-to-day basis, which is nice for looking at trends and seeing overall growth of Dingo's recommendations for the seller. On the customer recommendation side, we have a few screens to cover. On the bottom right, you can see what a text message from Dingo looks like after a customer has made an order. So they receive this text from Dingo, and then they can go to this link that is sent, and it'll take you to the leftmost screen, which is where you can see your top recommendations. You can select one, submit it, and then it'll take you to the next screen. In this case, we're configured to have loyalty points added and only 0 right now. But this would change depending on what the seller has configured in their dashboard. Now, let's take a look at the customer value that Dingo is providing. We've identified two main sort of customers. We have the sellers on Square, who are the ones actually going to be interacting and using Dingo, and we have the customers of these sellers on Square, who are the ones that will be receiving the recommendations from Dingo. So for the seller on Square, we've identified the flow of the seller onboarding onto Dingo, configuring the recommendation settings, and having Dingo start generating recommendations for customers. Then, if the seller needs to, they redeem coupons for customers that are using % off coupons, and then Dingo will track the recommendation metrics on the seller dashboard for the seller to view. On the customer end, the customer will first start off by buying an item at the seller's shop. Then Dingo will notice that the customer's bought an item and then generate a personalized recommendation based on their purchase. The customer will receive a link to their recommendations via text, and then they can select which item discount to redeem, and they return to the seller to use the discount, whether or not it's loyalty points or % off. We've also identified a couple of sample personas for sellers on Square, for a seller on Square and a buyer on Square. For the seller on Square, let's take a look at Dutana Boba, which is a family-run boba shop with a focused food and drink menu, a rotating seasonal selection, and that's integrated with Square for payment processing, order tracking, and loyalty programs. And they're currently looking for ways to increase customer retention. They have a few pain points. One of which is retention. They want to improve their loyalty program to engage directly with customers and increase customer retention. They feel like they're sort of lacking on a more personal engagement level with the customers. Dingo provides customizable, personalized customer recommendations to improve customer select retention, and it fits in seamlessly with the loyalty program that Dutana Boba is already on. Menu-wise, they want customers to try new drinks to inform what drinks to introduce in the future. They don't want customers just purely sticking with the most popular items. And to solve this, Dingo will offer discounts on specific menu items, not always the most popular, and so customers are incentivized to try new food and drinks. And the dashboard sandbox also allows sellers to figure out what menu combinations might work, what might not work, and what Dingo suggests should be correlated. Lastly, on the tracking front, Dutana Boba wants to learn more about the habits of their customers, as well as what menu items bring customers into the shop. To this end, Dingo's dashboards offer end-to-end tracking on the effectiveness of the recommendations, so they can learn from and see how effective Dingo is being for the business. If we look at a buyer persona, we see Sala, a 27-year-old engineer who shops at many businesses that use Square. She's very adventurous. She likes trying new food and drinks, as well as new restaurants and cafes, and she's cost conscious. She tries to find good deals when ordering. She also has a few pain points. One is that she doesn't go to the same restaurant often enough to really justify trying new menu items over her favorite order. But now, with Dingo generating recommendations for her, she'll be able to get discount codes for specific items, oftentimes new menu items, that are recommended because of her favorite orders. So now Sarah's encouraged to try new menu items at a lower cost, and there's a good chance that she'll also enjoy them. Cost-wise, Sala is always trying to seek out promotional deals or coupons and will often visit a shop just for the discounts. Now, with Dingo offering discounts for recommended menu items, she's incentivized to go to restaurants she's already visited. Now, cost is a benefit as opposed to a pain point. Loyalty wise, Sarah enjoys when sellers have loyalty programs and rewards, especially when there's a simple onboarding process. She enjoys cashing in on repeat visits by getting free items, discounts here and there, and she enjoys it when she doesn't have to fill out a form. She can just sort of put it on her phone number and sign up for a loyalty program. Now, Dingo extends sellers' loyalty programs so that they get recommendations at no additional onboarding cost to customers or sellers. So now Sarah can enjoy more out of her loyalty program without having to pay more or anything at all. Moving on, let's look at how Dingo was implemented. So the Square APIs we used for this hackathon were the loyalty API and the customers API in terms of customer point of sale APIs, and then the catalog API and the orders API in terms of other APIs that we used. The loyalty API we used to give customers additional loyalty points upon purchase of a recommended item. And we also integrated the customer loyalty API to retrieve customer contact information like their phone number as necessary. And then we also integrated the loyalty API with webhooks to alert on new loyalty events, which is how we sort of see when a customer will buy, when a customer orders something from a seller. We also use the catalog API to retrieve menu items from a seller's catalog for use in generating recommendations. And we use the order API to retrieve seller's order history for the algorithm to sort of learn the relationships between items and see who likes what. And we also need the orders API to retrieve the order items on new orders that are coming in. So this is the Dingo technical flowchart. It depicts sort of the technical flow that Dingo, Square, and other customers and sellers need to take in order to go from the customer buying an order from a seller to a coupon being redeemed and eventually expiring. So we see there's sort of two starting points that happen sort of concurrently. They don't have to happen sequentially. The customer can buy an order from the seller. Of course, the seller has to already be onboarded onto Dingo. So that's why we see the seller starting point and the customer starting point. And you can sort of take a look to see the flow. I won't go over it super in depth, but I'll sort of give a brief run through. If we start at the seller starting point, we see the seller onboard, and then independently, Dingo will retrieve seller catalog items from the catalog API and pass orders from the orders API in order to start generating the proper recommendation algorithm. The seller then configures settings on the dashboard to, as they see fit, how they want the recommendations to happen, which recommendations they want to give, things like that. Then the customer starts off by buying an order from the seller. Dingo is alerted. Dingo will receive the customer ID and order items, run the recommendation model, and then send the customer a text with the link to the selection screen. The customer will then choose the item to redeem, depending on whether they actually redeem it, and depending on whether or not the seller chooses to give extra loyalty points or percentage off, it'll sort of change what the customer needs to do or what the customer gets. But at the end of the day, the coupon is either redeemed as a result of the coupon being used, or it expires due to seller settings if it's not used. Then the flow sort of completes, and we sort of close the cycle and wait for the customer or another customer to buy an order from the seller again. For the front end, we built it with React. It was hosted on AWS Amplify. You can see some sort of sample screens here. And it was, in my opinion, one of the nicest sort of aspects of Dingo is that it's a very clean looking dashboard, seller dashboard. It's intuitive and it offers a lot of functionality for sellers on Square. We also have the backend, which is built with Node.js and MongoDB as a database, and it was hosted on an AWS EC2 instance. The backend handles integration with Square. It sets up webhooks to alert on new orders. It populates the seller dashboard with catalog items and updates statistics, and it applies configure settings and communicates with the recommendation backend, which is next. The recommendation backend, we have the algorithm, which uses ActionML's universal recommender, and also a collaborative filtering-based approach, which basically is using the idea that similar users may also like similar things. And using this algorithm, we're able to train and respond to queries in real time, and also it's easily scalable for the future. In terms of SMS alerting, We use Twilio to contact customers with recommendations. That about sums it up. Thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to check out our dev post submission for more information, challenges, accomplishments, learnings, and next steps. Thank you very much.